And I think I better not put this behind the paywall. Little public one coming up here. All right. Coming from Julia Conley, telling us that hundreds of homes and other properties across millions of acres in the U.S. are projected to be at least partially submerged by seawater by the year 2050. We bought our house uphill. This is according to a new analysis released on Thursday, with major implications not just for homeowners, but also public services in their communities, as tax bases in hundreds of counties are expected to shrink. Now, the nonprofit research group Climate Central, they examined sea level rise that's been projected by experts at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the NOAA. We've said those letters so many times on this program. And so the NOAA, they found earlier this year that sea levels in the U.S. coastal areas could rise by about 1 foot by 2050. Tidal boundary lines and records regarding more than 50 million properties in coastal areas, finding that nearly 650,000 individual properties are most at risk of falling below tidal boundaries within the next 3 decades. Breed less, grow plants more. I have a quote coming from the folks at Climate Central. Sea level rise is shifting the high and low tide lines that coastal states use to define boundaries between public and private property. They continue, as these boundaries shift, private property will be lost to permanent coastal flooding, end quote. Louisiana has the most homes and other buildings at risk. Louisiana is already below sea level. This is coming with more than 25,000 properties across 2.5 million acres expected to fall below tide level boundary by 2050. This will be amounting to 8.7% of the state's total land area being inundated by seawater. Also looking at Florida, North Carolina, and Texas. They are the next 3 most at-risk states in the nation, and they account for 87% of the land area expected to be lost to the sea. New Jersey, New York, Maryland, they were also identified as states that are likely to see thousands of properties submerged. Now we have the senior advisor at Climate Central who led the research, Don Bain. And Don Bain told the Washington Post that the analysis should be a wake-up call for frontline communities that need to adapt to the coming sea level rise as government inaction continues in the face of rising carbon emissions. One quote from Don Bain: "As the sea is rising, tide lines are moving up elevation. It's an upslope and it's inland. People really haven't internalized that yet. That, hey, I'm going to have something taken away from me by the sea." End quote from Don Bain. The 1 foot of sea level rise that's projected to take place over the next 30 years roughly matches the change that has taken place over the past century. And rise is expected to accelerate by 2015. So by 2100, more than 1 million buildings with a combined assessed value of 108 billion of our precious dollars. You can't eat money. It will all be lost, partially submerged at high tide. Quote from climate scientist Jonathan Overpeck in response to this analysis. And John Overpeck put this on the Twitter, and this was responding to the Washington Post article, saying, quote, sea level rise disaster is closer than we thought. Nearly 650,000 individual-owned parcels across as many as 4.4 million acres of land are projected to fall below changing tidal boundaries. 9.1 million acres by 2100. End quote. They have the Senior Fellow for Energy and Environment at the Council on Foreign Relations. Senior Fellow for Energy and the Environment at the Council on Foreign Relations. Her name is Alice Hill. And Alice Hill said in a statement, quote, "The economic impacts of sea level rise, they're going to be a little devastating." End quote. I do the voices. And she continues saying, "Understanding where and when financial impacts will be most acute can inform action and support at the state and national level, assisting local efforts to maintain critical services and adapt to our changing climate." End quote. Now, while the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, the NOAA, was warned that approximately a foot of sea level rise by 2050 is relatively certain, scientists agree that sharply reducing fossil fuel emissions will slow the heating of the planet. Get the fuck out of here. Is that what the scientists said? I had no fucking idea since 1912. Look it up, folks. 1912, climate change. No shit. It's serious. They say you can reduce those fossil fuel emissions, and which is melting the glaciers. Ooh. The glaciers and the ice sheets across the globe, and it's warming the Earth's oceans, causing their volume to expand. Quote, "If we get our act together, we can get to a lower curve." And he also says, and this is Bain, Don Bain, saying, quote, "We don't want seas rising so fast that it outpaces our capacity to adapt." You have to adapt to the results of the actions of capital. Continuing, Climate Central's research was released weeks after President Joe Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act into law, garnering applause from progressives for the package's $369 billion in climate change and climate action and energy security investments, while also provoking condemnation from climate campaigners. The law mandates a continuation of oil and gas drilling and includes a carbon capture scheme, which critics say is meant to, quote, "extend the life of the fossil fuel industry." All right, quote from oceanographer and sea level rise expert by the name of William Sweet. That's not me, that's a nerd. I wish I was one of the nerds. William Sweet says, quote, "Emissions matter, especially as we get beyond the next 20 to 30 years. You reduce emissions, you reduce your likelihood of higher sea levels." And William Sweet gets the closer on that one. All right, folks, it is 3 a.m. at the time of recording. And again, I figure I probably should not paywall this one. I'll go ahead and produce it to the basic end of things and send it straight off to the old public feed there. Main public feed, Blog Talk Radio. I do my little micro short videos on the TikTok. I do that. That makes me cool, right? I am quite based, if you will. But sometimes the topics are cringe, all right? And other such cool words that you can yeet or whatever it is they're doing. I do that on the TikTok. I went ahead and applied to get the podcast put in Spotify. You look for Mr. Williams' Neighborhood. I also went ahead to apply to put it in Stitcher Radio. Look for Mr. Williams Laborhood. It's already in iTunes. That's Apple Podcasts. Mr. Williams Laborhood. All right, and I think I've got it across the board. The YouTube is Mr. Williams Laborhood, and I'm one of those people that made one of those link trees. All right, one of those link tree things. Now let's take another look at something else that Phoenix Collider had set up for me, as it is 3:04 in the AM at this particular time, and I intend to try to get out the door before 3:40 AM. So I can go ahead and bang out another 17-hour shift. Let's take a look here. So the folks over at truthout.org, they have a headline, Michigan judge blocks state's 1931 anti-abortion law. Article up by Chris Walker, published September 8th. Time of recording, September 14th. Hey, we get paid on the 1st and 15th. Pretty cool. All right. And they hop in. A state judge in Michigan has ruled that a 1931 law barring nearly all abortions in the state is unconstitutional and inconsistent with standards meant to ensure that residents' bodily autonomy rights are respected. This is all simple shit, folks. And but also, like, for me on abortion, I also just think it's a good idea. It's simply just logical, economically, sociologically, intergenerationally. Abortion is a good idea. All right. A broke, traumatized 19-year-old should not be cranking out a unit of offspring. A broke, lost, traumatized 28-year-old probably also should not. 35 years old, maybe not. Maybe wait. And maybe someone gets past the age where, you know, like a pregnancy would be safe to carry out. I got to tell you, folks, species isn't going to die out. And if that person does have their mental health in order and has their finances in order, but, you know, they're like 48 years old now, but they got their money in order. They got their mind working right. They've got past their past traumas. There are kids to adopt. Before I was 18, I was one of them. I'll tell you that, buddy. Okay? So, I mean, fucking abortions are outstanding. Get them. They're such a good idea. They're super cool. Like, if you get an abortion, I will give you a shout out or something. Continuing on truthout.org. Before the preliminary injunction, the law was set to be implemented after the federal Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade earlier this year. The law was enforced before Roe was decided in 1973, and likely would have been automatically triggered had the injunction not been put in place 1 month before federal abortion rights were overturned. On Wednesday, a Court of Claims judge Elizabeth Gleicher issued a permanent injunction on the law, barring its enforcement, at least for the time being, as an appeal from anti-abortion activists, fascists. All right, use the word fascists. But then ultimately, like, they'll just start calling themselves fascists, like, claiming it like ironically, knowing that they really are, and then the irony will be removed, and that's what they really are. Never fuck with plausible deniability, ever in neverness. Continuing. So, in her ruling, Gleicher noted that the statute is, quote, facially unconstitutional because its enforcement would deprive pregnant women of their right to bodily integrity and autonomy and the equal protection of the law, end quote. The Michigan State Constitution includes the right to bodily integrity and equal protection to pregnant people under the law, but the 1931 statute violated those principles, Gleicher wrote, quote, our Constitution does not permit the legislature to impose unjustifiable burdens on different classes of pregnant women. It also forbids treating pregnant women as unequal to men in terms of their ability to make personal decisions about when and whether to be a parent, End quote. Continuing from truthout.org, and Phoenix Calida makes her way into the building. Let me get you do rop ribble hivel flibble. There we are, matey. Continuing. Barring people from getting abortions also threatens them with irreparable injury, Gleicher wrote in their opinion as well, noting that without the availability of abortion services, pregnant people will, quote, will be denied appropriate, safe, and constitutional protected medical care as well. Abortion rights advocates celebrated the ruling with a, quote, skibidi-doop, coming from the Planned Parenthood of Michigan in a series of tweets. That's called a thread, truthout.org. And a quote from this series of tweets. Today's Court of Claims, I can't give Twitter a voice. Today's Court of Claims ruling will ensure that Michiganders, not a fucking word, can continue to make deeply personal decisions about their health, lives, and futures without interference from state officials. Planned Parenthood of Michigan said in a series of tweets, we are grateful to every Michigander, not a word, who has joined in this fight, and to every provider who has continued to serve patients during this period of chaos and uncertainty. And that's my timer going off. I think I accidentally reset that when I turned it off after the shift ended yesterday. Whoops and a daisy. Really? I'd like to go back to the article. No? Oh, Jesus Christ. So while I was in the article, Facebook said, let's go ahead and reload.
Oh.
But like, it's literally like updating the application. Okay. And that was where I was reading it from. All right, but I think folks kind of get it, right? There was a 1931 law that was about to be like, look, if you were out there hop, skipping, and bebopping about, right, up in the Negro juke joint, and it was 1931 that passed?
Yes.
Hold on. 1931.
Yes.
I just want to see. Like, because is that at the end of Prohibition?
No, Prohibition was still happening, and then also what catches my eye about 1931 is that's 2 years after the big stock market crash. So the Great Depression was when they decided this was a good idea. Right? Yeah, right? Think about it. You hear the Great Depression? That started with the 1929 stock market crash. That was when that started. So 1931, we're already in the fucking depression. They're like, hey, you know what would be amazing right now?
And then you look at it. So and look at the consistency of these fucking dumb fucks, okay? Yeah, we say dumb again. Fucking, you go into the 80s, right? Elder millennials. This is how our lives are. Stop acting like that shit was new in our 20s. We were born into a recession. And what happens when we're born into that recession? Jerry Falwell and them niggas. They're like, yo, we are now the silent majority, and fuck those abortions. There's a recession and a Republican in office. Right? You go up into 1991, to my understanding, another recession. That was why right after the election of 1992, Bill Clinton had to kick out a stimulus package at the top of 1993. My biological mother got a car. Toyota Corolla. And then dancing it up, wasn't there a recession between 1999 and 2001?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think I remember reading that. Feel free to fact check me on that one, folks. Right now, we've gotten to the riffing part. We're riffing. See, and unlike other riffers, I don't just say, and everything I'm saying is a verifiable no. But then the main one that we really know of, and I think it hits us harder because now we're the adults. Right? Like when you're children and there's a recession, it's like, oh yeah, working on Saturday. Do grown-ups do that now? Huh. Right? You don't get it.
Right. There's just never any McDonald's money all of a sudden.
Like, that's probably where that phrase came from.
Yeah, I'd be like, no, there will be no, back then chicken sandwiches were still $1. It was $1 for McChicken. There will be no $1 McChickens today, children.
Yo, wait, what? When are you talking about?
A
When
dollar
when
for a
we were
McChicken?
kids?
It was still $1 when I was an adult for a few years.
Okay, because I know when
Because they used to have it's I think a value menu now
Yeah.
is what they call it, but it used to be a dollar menu specifically, and they used to have a McChicken on there.
Okay, I remember that when I aged out of foster care, like the dollar menu was like the hot thing everywhere, and like every fast food joint, their big burger was on the dollar menu. The Big and Tasty at McDonald's, the Whopper, Jack in the Box, the Jumbo Jack, whatever the fuck Wendy's was doing. And well, nah, when I was 12 in 1996, a little bit before I turned 13, I think I was getting cheeseburgers were like 69 cents and a hamburger was like 49 or 59 cents. Yeah, that was when I first I went to the mall. I was like, yo, I'll get 5 cheeseburgers. I can just do that. Shouldn't just leave kids unsupervised like that.
You shouldn't, but you know.
And then, but that main one that really hit us because we were adults in 2009, right? And that's when the Tea Party is running around cracking off. And then, matter of fact, because now 2009 and 2010, they get that run of elections, and going into 2011, 12, 13, and up until here come massive trap laws, making that shit ill to the legal across the Bidnord. All right. Facebook opening back the funk up.
Is my mic on?
The who?
My mic is on, yeah.
Oh, checking up. Yeah, Phoenix Leader just entered. Microphone on, checking it.
Yeah, just checking. Yeah.
Yep, it's
Okay.
there.
I was like,
Okay.
we didn't look at all.
Yeah, you're colored. It's
Yes.
three to the 15.
Yes.
And back to Phoenix Leader's news for the weekend. Is there one in particular that you want to do before we hit the door? I'll look at headlines while you pick.
I think if we're gonna do an important story, the last one I put in there is
Woman's rape cries go unheard in unmonitored drug sting.
yeah.
All right. I did not load a trigger warning in the beginning, but now you just heard me say those words. And we've been doing this for kind of a bit now, and I'm also like, as I like enter into different like broadcasting, podcasting, and internet spaces, I'm realizing that our deal with the trigger warnings is very insular to a very fucking small number of people. And I'm pretty sure everybody else outside. That's why when that piece was wrote up about us, it was said exhaustive trigger warning.
Yes.
Yeah. Cause like I'm just in my own little echo chamber. Like, we're all right about everything, right, guys? Step outside. We're like, yo, you're fucking weird. I am? But me and my 30 friends. All right. And this is coming off damn, U.S. News.
Yep.
Might as well just be called fucking the part of the First Amendment y'all niggas don't like to mention. Like, they might as well just call it that.
Yes. It's U.S. News and World Report. I have been reading them since I was in high school. Shit.
Damn. This is thug-uminical. And it looks like this one is imported over from the Associated Press and published yesterday, September 13th. So, an Associated Press investigation found a woman informant, all right, for the police fellers, was allegedly raped twice during an undercover drug sting last year, and in the same setting. Let's get into the story, I guess. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. It was the same. We're gonna get to it, but basically he stopped what he was doing to do another drug transaction, then continued doing what he was doing.
Jesus fucking Christ. In which law enforcement handlers left her unmonitored and unprotected. Of course they did. And and it's showing really, they have a picture of the house she was raped in for the article. Well, that must be something for her if she ever sees the article. Continuing, and this is out of Alexandria, Louisiana, so a parish of sorts. A woman outfitted with a tiny microphone and a hidden camera walked up to a dilapidated drug house on a chilly afternoon last year, looking to buy meth from a dealer. Also, I swear to fuck, I was just fucking listening to Tariq Nasheed's doofy ass, and he said white people don't get locked up for meth. They just do it. They just get to do meth.
What is he talking about?
Them niggas do not try to, he doesn't give a fuck. He's just pure, there's not a shred of ethics in that fucking gout-riddled excuse for a high blood-pressured man.
It's just wild to me because I can't imagine how insular his audience has to be that they still, like, take this shit as gospel truth. Like, you've never fucking turned on the TV and seen white people getting arrested for meth? In this country?
It's
Are you
the stupidest shit.
Like, hillbilly heroin, West Virginia.
Also, and what are Florida man stories? We literally have a decade plus now of it being a trend to see white men arrested. What are white on white crime stories on this program? If you fall asleep watching the MSNBC and you wake up in the middle of the night, what do you see? The damn prison show. What do you see on there? Bunch of white niggas in there. There are also black inmates, bunch of white ones. Why do you think the Aryan Nation exists in there? You think that's the guards? They're a different gang. Continuing. And when I say they're a different gang, I'm quoting MC China Mac on a recent Vlad interview. Continuing. All right. So, but also this area, it's the meth from a dealer known on the streets as Mississippi. And continuing. But as the informant disappeared inside with a career criminal with a rap sheet spanning 3 decades, her law enforcement handlers left her undercover on her own. And now also, the rap sheet spanning 3 decades. Right? You want to be against the carceral state, but you also want to be like, what the fuck?
Right.
So you put her in there with a nigga that, like, he basically is an inmate at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you just basically threw her in a prison cell with meth. Yep. That's what that really is. Yep. Like, that nigga is institutionalized. He can't... How the fuck do you bring this nigga... Because 3 decades...
Yeah.
Like, he could easily be in his fucking 50s when you think about, like... I mean, unless he started getting arrested in his teens, which would still put him in his 40s.
Right.
This nigga's whole entire life is this.
Mm-hmm.
This is the pragmatism. These are the fucking boys in blue. This is why I follow a page on Facebook called Enough is Enough, where all they do is just cover dead cops. I do my part and I react to every single one. And a lot of times I'm the only one. Come join me. Jesus.
Yeah.
They can't ban you from reacting.
And it's also fascinating to me too, because isn't like a whole big thing in this cop propaganda that like they're putting their lives on the line in danger doing stuff nobody else will. Apparently, if you're trying to get your charges reduced, you will let someone who has a pending meth charge do it too. So it seems, without a gun, without a badge, without backup, without the dog, baton, bulletproof vest, not a goddamn thing. You just let someone walk in there, but you want me to think you're fucking brave? Okay.
Yep, and from what we already know, for the most part, the pigs die because they fry their own bacon. Like, everybody fucking knows that by now. Everybody who cares about facts, right? Facts and logic. Yeah, like, we all know that, but also from following that Enough is Enough page, yeah, they just die a lot. Like we said, they fry their own bacon. They die in training a lot, doing dumb shit. Crashing their fucking cars, being dumb fucks.
Shit, last year, COVID was the biggest killer of cops.
Yep, because they're fucking ass faces out there fucking partying, right? And then keep in mind, like, cops are rapists, sex workers exist, COVID is sexually transmitted. Don't forget these fact-based facts, right? Continuing, we're doing an article here. It's 322. Holy balls. So the informant disappeared inside with the career criminal, and they left her undercover on her own, unprotected, unmonitored, in real time, and the devices she carried passively recorded a crime far more horrific than any drug buy. Under the threat of violence, the dealer forced the woman to perform oral sex on him twice, in an attack so brazen he paused at one point to conduct a separate drug deal, according to interviews and confidential law enforcement records obtained by the Associated Press. reminding me that Louisiana rapper Mystical is on his third rape charge. Third rape charge, third rape that we know of. That nigga is clearly a fucking rapist. This one reminded me of that because that was his first charge, was this fashion of performing a rape. Continuing. We have a quote here from a local official who viewed the footage. I guess you fucking have to. Quote, "It was one of the worst depictions of sexual abuse I have ever seen," end quote. And he spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity because he was not authorized to discuss the ongoing case. He also says, just the audio from it is enough to turn your stomach. It's a female being sexually brutalized while she is crying and whimpering, end quote. Even as the woman cried and her assailant threatened to put her, quote, in the hospital, end quote, narcotics deputies remained down the block in the blighted neighborhood, unaware of what was going on. Yes, they knew what the fuck was going on. You think men don't know rape culture exists? What the fuck do you think all those fucking prom pictures are about?
Yeah.
Men know rape culture exists, they just don't admit it until they have daughters. Continuing. Now, they claim they were unaware of what was going on, and they say this is because, as authorities told the AP, they never considered such an attack might happen. Lying motherfuckers. All right, continuing. They didn't think it would happen, and the devices the woman carried didn't have the ability to transmit the operation to law enforcement in real time. Wait, what?
Yeah, so they had a mic and camera on her, but it, like, because you know how, like, in the movies, how there's always, like, the cops in the van, and then, like, the person has, like, the wire on, and they're, like, watching from the cameras in the van.
Yeah.
There was no feed to the van. They were just in the van without any sort of live feed watching this person. But also that's wild to me because this case is going around because it was clearly a sexual assault, but they've never had a physical issue, like a physical altercation. Nobody ever argued over money when they've done this, right? There was no, your informant accidentally ran into someone they already had pre-existing beef with. They've literally never, ever, ever had a problem sending informants in to do this shit without being monitored in real time, ever. I don't believe that.
So, like, are there more of these? But then, like, are the victims going to be able to come forward? Because, like, these are just people that already have charges. They're already they're locked away in a rape cage with the prison guards now. Yep. They're never going to get to tell their stories. Like, I don't think that we'll ever really have a general American or even global populace that actually knows how horrible anything really is.
Yeah.
Ever. Hey, go buy a big pretzel and a soda. Right? As long as you can get a big pretzel and a soda, it's all good. Continuing for some reason, we have a quote. Oh yeah, I wanted to say, like, just speaking of the technology, to not have that shit going, like, it doesn't mention anything about her having an earpiece, so we're talking about a one-way feed. This is the technology of a fucking baby monitor, and they couldn't be bothered to put in that effort. These
Seriously.
are your blue lives that matter.
And all the fucking money that we give police.
And it is bipartisan.
Yes.
Right? Like, fucking, I don't like Jiggy Joe, but fucking, I'm not gonna fucking pretend that, like, the Republicans aren't doing that shit. You know, you got niggas like niggas that go at Jiggy Joe so hard to a point of where it's like, all right, balance that one out. The mother niggas ain't shit either. All right, continuing with a quote from the sheriff, and yep, we were correct. It is a parish. The Rapides, maybe it's Rapides, Rapides, and the sheriff Mark Wood said, quote, "It was recording, but not to where my guys were monitoring it. There are always things you learn that you can do better." End quote.
Oh, you skipped a fun little sentence there in between.
Yes, because he has said this quote. Yeah, that's why I like to do the articles, because I want to find, because I always look for the person's name before I do the quote, because I hate just flying into the quote and I don't know what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah, but and he said that, blaming the January 2021 incident on his inexperience from only being in the top job 6 months at the time. Wait, but nigga, do you get that job straight out of high school?
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Was this like how they do with the athletes? Mm-hmm. Right? It was like he got what do they call it? Drafted right out of high school.
Yep.
Like I'm willing to bet that you were at least a beat cop before this. Mm-hmm. That you did something.
Yep.
You did a sting operation, your damn self.
Probably.
Right? I mean, if following Carl Winslow's career on Family Matters tells me anything about how the job works, I'm pretty sure a sitcom is how you know how the real world functions. Mm-hmm. Right? It's my big pretzel.
Yes.
Continuing. The case in this central Louisiana city of 47,000 underscores the perils confidential informants face seeking to work off criminal charges in loosely regulated and often secretive arrangements with law enforcement. And then so from here, does the article just go to tell me what you were telling me about in the car with like they get these charges and they're like, it's basically, it's almost like if I have a growing black audience, y'all already know about this shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know how it is. It's you're not taking a plea deal, but it's that sort of fucking thing. Mm-hmm. Like, well, can I get fucking less time?
Exactly.
Yeah, we know. Like this all of this is for middle class white people. Mm-hmm. That's what all this following information is for.
Yeah. Just one thing I would point out, that when they arrested this guy, he's now has charges of second-degree rape, false imprisonment. So they actually added felonies on because of what he did to her. So like, he's gonna get locked away for life because of what he did to her, but also that she was only able to report that happened to her because cops fucking left her there. I feel like that's worth noting. So like, they actually got extra charges on him because of this. But what's interesting is that Parker, who is a former lieutenant who just retired after this scandal came to light, noted that in the paperwork they said she must be okay after she went in the house because someone else went in the house. So because another person went into the house where they're selling drugs after she went in, she must be fine because the other person would have told us if something was wrong. Because you know how likely you are to report to police when you are already doing something illegal. You're in a house where people are doing something illegal, and you just heard a man threaten to beat a woman till she had to go to a hospital. The first thing I would do is call the cops, right? Yeah, okay.
Which also, like, to me, what up?
And then just his quote just shows, I think, the callousness. This is, I think, worth noting. This is a quote from the guy who, like, the lieutenant who was on this case. He said, "We've always done it this way. She was an addict, and we just used her as an informant like we've done a million times before."
I was just about to fucking say that I'm like, for some of you, listen to my language here. Some of you women out there, this is the patriarchy you simp for.
Yeah.
Right? Because, like, they're really just going by tiers of validity of your womanhood. Like, this is just a tiered system, and this one, it's like, well, fucking junkies are fine around other junkies, right?
Yeah, exactly.
With junkies, it's never junkie. Rape junkies are just bumping uglies. Or they're just doing junkie stuff, right?
Or she probably was just willing to trade anyway for drugs.
Yeah. No, that's not assault.
And then they add that while it's not clear what deal she struck with the parish sheriff's office, it doesn't seem to matter because 3 weeks after this recorded assault, she was charged with possession of drug paraphernalia from a month that happened before the sting. So she got arrested before the sting, tried to work off her charges, got raped trying to work off those charges, and then got charged anyway. So she still got charged, and they got extra felonies on that guy. They come out looking great for their conviction records.
While the cops, I mean, they are essentially negligent accessories to rape. So, like, where the fuck are their charges? Nope. They're gonna get their salaries, their bonuses, their overtime while taking a nap, They're gonna get their pensions, their retirement,
Yep.
and then they're in Louisiana, right? And then they're gonna be able to live in the part of Louisiana that won't be affected by the sea level rise mentioned at the up front in this episode. All right, folks.
Yep.
And it is 3:33, and I'm late. I'm out of here.